Hi everyone, we made the first part of this piranha guide in the pandemic and never got around to doing the second part, so we decided to make it as a long video instead, so we can add in some extra footage and show as much as possible about piranhas in nature. The video now shows 28 species, to give you a pretty good overview, covering about 2/3 of all piranhas. At least currently, there are 32 Serrasalmus species, 3 Pygocentrus, 5 Pristobrycon, 2 Cataprion, and 1 Pygopristis. So we currently have 43 species we would call piranhas. That is a lot of fish, and especially many of the Serrasalmus are very similar to each other and difficult to identify. Eventually, there'll be a second video with the pacus, which are the same family as the piranhas, Serrasalmidae. Piranhas are essentially highly specialized predatory pacus. Pacus are even more complicated because there are lots of species, at least 60 of them, including many that I have not seen myself. The serra, Latin for saw, part of Serrasalmus actually does not refer to the saw-like teeth at all, but rather refers to the keel on the belly of the piranhas and pacus, where the scales have fused and formed this sharp serrated edge, likely so that it is harder for predators to swallow the fish. A special thanks to Matt Coleman, one of the leading experts on piranhas who produced these amazing MRI scans. In some species, this structure is more pronounced than in others, but if you look closely, you can usually see it right away, especially between the beginning of the anal fin and the ventrals. Let's first look at Pygocentrus, maybe the most common piranhas in the aquarium and the species you're most likely to see in any zoo or public aquarium. Cariba is a species found in the Orinoco Basin in Colombia and Venezuela. Piraya is not found in the Amazon Basin at all. It is restricted to the São Francisco Basin in eastern Brazil. And naterreri, the red belly piranha, is widespread from the Guyanas down to Argentina. The thing I get asked the most is what species can be kept together, and that depends on how the tanks are set up. If you don't have much room, say 200 liters or 75 gallons, the best choice is the red belly piranha, Pygocentrus naterreri. Keeping piranhas in a group is a really tricky endeavor, and be prepared to lose some fish in the process. In aquariums of over 2,000 liters or 500 gallons, it's also possible to keep mixed species groups, and I have seen piraya, cariba, naterreri, maculatus, and jerry all kept together, with plenty of wood branches to give them territories and hide from each other. The largest piranha species, at least by weight, is Pygocentrus piraya. It'll get over 50 centimeters or 18 inches. This species has beautiful orange flame patterns on the flanks. Pygocentrus live in groups in nature, and they're essentially like vultures, disposing of fish and animals that are usually already dead. In the aquarium, they get along well enough if you feed them on a regular basis, and as the group gets older, they usually get along better. Small-sized piranhas are incredibly cannibalistic and often bite each other's eyes out or destroy the tail of their tank mates. So if you want to have a group of 10 fish, it is best to start with 15 smaller ones. All 3 of the Pygocentrus species start to calm down after 5 centimeters or 2 inches. So I would say that it is the size to try and get a group together. Piranhas in groups always require some patience, plenty of structures in the aquarium, and especially when they're small, they need to be fed often. Piranhas rarely kill humans, and the body of a human or a cow is just as likely to get stripped to the bone by pimelodids or cetopsid catfish. This footage is filmed in the Orinoco flood zone, where schools of huge Pygocentrus cariba are very close to me and show not much interest at all. Unless there is an open wound with blood, they are unlikely to ever bite a large animal. It is interesting to note that in nature they also form groups of around equal size. It is highly unusual to see a group of mixed sizes. These fish of around 30 centimeters or 12 inches take the deepest sector of the habitat behind a culvert where weakened or dead fish may be brought by the current. Smaller sized caribe groups also occur nearby, but they are pushed out to the more shallow water. Serrasalmus are always loners, with individuals swimming along the margins of the river where they can feed on the fins and other fish or injure the smaller fish. If there is a corpse to dispose of, piranhas are not usually first on the scene, but once they start to come in numbers, they can quickly dispose of any soft tissues. Many fish in the Amazon rely on such opportunities, and at night or at depth, you are more likely to see catfish feeding on a corpse. During the day, all kinds of other fish take part in the feeding. These Pygocentrus cariba make a mess when they take the corpse apart, so Astyanax and even little Aphiocharax eat the smaller bits that get knocked loose. You can see here that huge numbers of the small tetras surround the feeding piranhas, not only snapping up small bits that get knocked loose by the piranhas, but also actively feeding on the soft tissue. Astyanax have formidable teeth and are well capable of prying loose parts off this carcass. Cichlid predators such as peacock bass or pike cichlids or wolffish will also be attracted to this feeding frenzy, but they will focus on catching the other fish off guard and ambushing them in the chaos. Notice that the piranhas may bite each other at the carcass in the feeding frenzy, but that they don't pursue the chirocins at all. Sped up 20 times, this footage shows how many small characins are part of the feeding frenzy and how different groups of piranhas seem to come in to feed on the corpse. Interesting to note that the very large animals found in deeper water would not go to the shallows to join this frenzy. Given that this kind of feeding can quickly get out of control, being close to the fish feeding like this is a bit more worrying when there are large adults present. At the beginning of the rainy season, food is abundant, water levels rise quickly, and mammals, birds, and some reptiles may get caught and die in the water. In this case, a road-killed caiman made for ideal piranha bait. It takes only some minutes before the first smaller fish notice the new food source, and not long after the piranhas come in to feed. Another piranha that may be kept in a group in the aquarium, and perhaps with other fish such as Leperinus or Pacu, is Pygocentrus denticulata. In nature, they occur in small groups of 3 to 10 fish, biting on the fins of other fish when they are smaller, but eventually feeding on seeds and plants. These are often found in blackwater rivers and show a really nice yellow coloration with blood-red fins. Adults are close to 20 centimeters or 8 inches in length. As is often the case when few people are trying, there is no information on breeding denticulata in the aquarium, but this species would be a good candidate to try. Cataprion, the wimple piranhas, are specialized scale eaters and my personal favorites. They get along very well, especially at a smaller size, but overall, they are maybe the easiest piranha to keep as a group, and the smallest species, with adults rarely exceeding 15 centimeters or 6 inches. They have teeth to lift the scales off other fish, and then they swallow the scales they have knocked loose. In nature, this is one of the most fascinating fish to watch, and is recognized by many fish species underwater. When a Cataprion approaches, cichlids often turn sideways to avoid a strike from the scale eaters. After an attack, the scales of the victim are knocked loose in the water column, and Cataprion will quickly gather them up. Scales are of course hard to digest, so in their stomach the scales end up stacked like a package of Pringles. As wimple piranhas mature, the anal and dorsal fin grow long extensions, like a pennant, the English word for the German Wimpel. This is a very beautiful fish and it can be kept in groups, but it is also a bit sensitive in shipping and hard to find. Adult males also show the convex lobe on the anal fin that helps to distinguish many Pacu species, a characteristic that is not usually noticeable in piranhas. The genus Pristobrycon, with 5 species, has some of the most colorful and moderately aggressive piranhas. In the aquarium, they are quite functional in small groups, resulting in some bitten off fins and damaged flanks, but usually no casualties. In nature, you can find them together in small groups as well, between 6 to 10 fish. Generally, all piranhas breed in the onset of the rainy season, when rivers flood over their banks, giving the fish access to new habitat and plenty of food is available to their young. Males build and defend rudimentary nests in the shallow water, usually in some riparian vegetation. At this time, the male's color often changes. Most piranhas turn dark or nearly black when breeding, but these Pristobrycon striolatus get crazy-looking tiger stripes in an alternating pattern of dark gray and silver. Once the males have established their territories, they will build shallow bowers, nests that are more like depressions in the substrate with the center area cleared of debris for the female to deposit her eggs. They are spaced at more or less equal distance from each other, with breeding males about 2 meters or 7 feet apart. Once eggs have been laid, the males guard the nests and area by themselves until the larvae are free swimming. Free-swimming fry congregate in the dense plants near the surface and have several months to feed on microinvertebrates, insect larvae, and eventually the fry of many other fish species, without protection of the male. As beautiful as this habitat looks, it is temporary, and the water will recede back to the river, leaving the flood zone either dry or as a swamp that is not accessible to most fish until the water begins to rise again. Check out the Upper Xingu video in the links for more details on this habitat. Also beautiful, but rarely seen in the hobby, is Pristobrycon calmoni, a species that occurs in the flood zone of the Orinoco. It is a rare fish that has been imported on few occasions. Despite this genus being less aggressive, these piranhas seem to be solitary in nature. Pristobrycon careospinus occurs in small clearwater creeks or in the rapids of larger rivers. This spectacular piranha has big green spots and bright red fins. It is maybe the most beautiful of all piranha species. This footage is filmed in the middle of a rapid, with the camera under this huge boulder, with strong current pushing water under the boulder at high speed, bringing occasionally small and exhausted terracins from upstream, the ideal victims for the waiting piranhas that would also feed on slower moving cichlids such as Heros and Hoplarchus. This group remains in this small territory, and even after a large rainfall changed the intensity of the rapids some days later, they would remain in place. I think many piranha species have rather fixed territories that likely only change during the rainy season when they move to different regions to breed. Like other Pristobrycon, careospinus get along quite well in the aquarium, occasionally biting each other without destroying other members of the group. This species certainly needs strong currents to thrive in the aquarium, or at least if you attempt to keep them as a group. This attractive fish would be an excellent choice for a breeding project, but it is now rarely seen in the hobby. Their adult size seems to be somewhat larger than the other species in the genus, at just over 25 centimeters or 10 inches. Just like all piranhas, they don't need live foods, and ideally they are fed with shrimp and some raw chunks of fish. This brings us to the second part of the piranha guide, featuring the many species of Serrasalmus. Please make sure to share this video and subscribe to the channel, and check out some of our other videos mentioned in the description.